From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. Migrants still live in fear 2 years after racist terror attack in Germany. Muslims fleeing Islamophobia in France and settling in Turkey, Gulf countries, and Canada. 38 Indian Muslims sentenced to death over 2008 bombings. 50 countries will participate in AQSA Week 2022 to promote love of the mosque and raise awareness. Redistricting will change political boundaries for thousands, including communities of color in Minnesota. Monstrous methane plume seen from space highlights urgent need to rein in fossil fuels. Our top story tonight. 2 years after a far-right terror attack in the German town of Hena, migrant communities are still living in fear and anxiety, eyewitnesses told Anadolu Agency. On the night of February 19, 2020, Özkan Rutbil saw extremist Tobias Ratjan shooting at people he targeted as foreign-looking. The 43-year-old assailant attacked 2 cafes in Hena, killing 9 young people and injuring 5 others. All the victims had migrant backgrounds. Before the attack, Ratjan posted videos on the internet detailing his xenophobic views. Later, he killed himself and his mother. Rutbil said, community members and survivors are still struggling to cope with the trauma of the attack. Turkey has become an attractive destination for Muslims fleeing France due to Islamophobia. That's according to a report by French newspaper Le Journal du Dimanche on Wednesday. Many young French Muslims are also settling in Gulf countries or applying for Canadian citizenship. French authorities have long been accused of discriminating against France's Muslim community. In 2021, 92 mosques and civil society organizations were closed down, according to the French government. In addition, French President Emmanuel Macron has introduced a set of principles that would define the Islam of France. A special court in Gujarat, India, sentenced 38 Muslims to death today for a series of bombings that shook the city of Ahmedabad in 2008. It was the first time that so many accused have received death sentences in a single case in India. The Indian Mujahideen, an unknown organization, claimed that the bombings were revenge for the 2002 massacres of Muslims that killed more than 1,000 people in the state of Gujarat. Current Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the chief minister of the state at that time. Modi was long banned from the United States for his role in the Gujarat massacre of Muslims, but was later acquitted by Indian courts. A group of 22 Kuwaiti parliamentarians on Thursday demanded the government ban the entry of any member related to India's Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, in Kuwait. Majbel Ash-Sharika, head of the Center of Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law, shared the official signed request on his Twitter handle. He said, "We can't sit back and watch Muslim girls being publicly persecuted. Time for the Muslim Ummah to reunite." The Islamic Constitutional Movement on Wednesday also staged a protest outside Kuwait's Indian embassy in solidarity with the Muslim women in Karnataka. Meanwhile, OIC is doubling down on its criticism of India's mistreatment of Muslims. Al-Habib Burain, OIC's Director of Muslim Communities and Minorities, addressing a 2-day international conference on human rights, said, "Calls for anti-Muslim violence are moving from the fringes to the mainstream," he added. A UK-based initiative to raise awareness about the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem has gone global. For the second year in a row, more than 50 countries are set to take part in AQSA Week 2022, organizers said. The event, which runs from February 24th to March 2nd, is being organized by the British-based Friends of Al-Aqsa. The NGO's mission is defending the human rights of Palestinians and protecting the Al-Aqsa sanctuary. The mosque is Islam's third holiest site. During the week, mosques, universities, local councils, and parliaments will hold talks, workshops, and other activities. The educational events will highlight the mosque's heritage and bring global focus to its issues and the plight of Palestinians. U.S. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has accused Israel of putting Palestinian children in cage-like prisons. The New York Democrat was speaking at the Democratic Socialist of America event during a campaign rally for Greg Kasar, who's running for Congress in Texas. Ocasio-Cortez compared migrant children at the U.S.-Mexico border to Palestinian children in the West Bank. She said Palestine is basically a banned word and has been censored from public discourse. Ocasio-Cortez also spoke against charges of anti-Semitism leveled against some of Israel's biggest critics in the House, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Bringing more news stories after the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Mr. Speaker, if I decide to wear a turban, or you decide to wear a cross, or he decides to wear a kippah or a skull cap, or she decides to wear a hijab or a burqa, does that mean that it is open season for right honourable members of this House to make derogatory and divisive remarks about our appearance? For those of us who from a young age have had to endure and face up to being called names such as Towelhead or Taliban, or coming from Bongo land, we can appreciate full well the hurt and pain felt by already vulnerable Muslim women when they are described as looking like bank robbers and letterboxes. So rather than hide behind sham and whitewash investigations, when will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remarks? Racist remarks, Mr. Speaker, which have led to a spike in hate crime. And given the increasing prevalence of such incidents within his party, when will the Prime Minister finally order an inquiry into Islamophobia within the Conservative Party, something which he and his Chancellor promised on national television?
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September.
I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table.
I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
A video showing police officers breaking up a fight between 2 teenagers, one black, one white, at a New Jersey mall has sparked outrage over police response. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said Wednesday the appearance of the officers' racially disparate treatment is deeply disturbing. One video of the incident reviewed by CNN shows the boys arguing, shoving, and exchanging punches. The black teenager ends up on the ground when 2 Bridgewater police officers arrive and separate the 2 boys. When the black teenager gets up, he's pinned to the ground by one officer and rolled onto his stomach with hands behind his back. The other officer pushes the white teenager onto a nearby couch and then helps his fellow officer with handcuffing the black teenager. The police department acknowledged in a Facebook post that they know the video upset community members. The Somerset County Prosecutor's Office is investigating the incident. After months of deliberation, a panel of 5 Minnesota judges have finalized the state's new legislative map. It marks the end of the state's redistricting process. Now, individual counties and cities will use the judges' map to draw their own lines. The judges' panel took on the task of submitting a new map after a divided state legislature failed to agree on a proposed map. With each U.S. Census, which is done every 10 years, individual states are responsible for using updated population data to redraw districts. In Minnesota, judges divide the state into 8 congressional districts. The map also determines the boundaries for 67 state Senate districts, each divided into 2 state House districts. The political power held by people of color could also change with new boundaries. Former U.S. President Donald Trump recently issued a threat to unleash his supporters on major U.S. cities. If re-elected, Trump said he would consider pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists. These statements underscore the former president and his far-right GOP allies represent a clear and present danger to democracy. That is according to an open letter released Thursday by a coalition of advocacy organizations. The organizations included Public Citizens, Move On Civic Action, Stand Up America, and Digital Democracy Project. The letter implores the U.S. Congress and the Biden White House, state legislators, prosecutors, and the public to respond to the ongoing legitimization of political violence. Trump is gearing up for another presidential run in 2024. Elon Musk has been criticized by Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum for comparing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to Adolf Hitler. The CEO of Tesla tweeted a meme showing a photo of Hitler with the words, "Stop comparing me to Justin Trudeau," and "I had a budget." The tweet was later deleted. Musk's use of Hitler's image disrespects the memory of all victims and hurts many people, the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum said. The museum now occupies the site of Nazi concentration camp where 960,000 people were killed. The American Jewish Committee demanded the billionaire apologize for his unacceptable tweet. Environmental justice advocates say a methane plume seen last month from space is the latest evidence that fossil fuel emissions must be reined in. Geoanalytics firm Kairos SAS detected the plume of invisible greenhouse gas, which spanned 56 miles across Louisiana, Bloomberg reported. It's the largest concentration of the gas seen via satellite in the U.S. since last October. A plume of such volume suggests an emission rate of 105 tons of methane per hour. A release lasting more than an hour at that rate would have the same short-term environmental impact as yearly emissions from nearly 2,000 cars, Bloomberg reported. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the recent developments regarding Ukraine's and Russia's escalation, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Hena. President Biden says that Russia is about to invade. Russia says it is moving forces away from the Ukraine border. But the NATO says that there is no sign of it. Well, we have someone who just came back from Ukraine. He's a journalist, been peacemaker, and a human rights activist, Alex RAUFOGLU. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Adam.
Tell us, when did you come back?
I came back 2 days ago. I went to Ukraine last week to meet with my journalist colleagues in the region and to establish some safe channels for information, because my focus, primary focus is disinformation coming from the region, and being born in the region, I know what that means, how Russia sends disinformation before they send army. And that's why I went there to establish safe channels in case of war, to make sure that we are able to get reliable information out of the region.
So there is news that Ukraine people are not that worried about war, and they're going about their life, and sometimes their president also asked America to tone down. What were your feeling when you were talking to people in Ukraine?
I had not been to Ukraine for more than 10 years. And one thing that struck me immediately is that Ukrainians have changed. Since 2002, when Russians poisoned their democratic president, they did have some feeling about Ukraine and its future. 2014 war did change them. They did establish their Ukrainian identity. But right now, during the last 8 years, there's a significant change in the region. Ukrainians are ready, prepared, and they're not going to let bully around. And that's why Ukrainians I think their message is consistent, and they look towards the West, and they have been asking for many years from the West to just give them sufficient resources, weapons, and also information tools and others to fight back against the bully next door. When it comes to Ukrainian president's messaging, obviously they're not against. He made it clear even during his meetings with the reporters that he is not against the narrative that the West has been pushing forward in terms of how to fight back the bully in the Kremlin, in terms of naming the name and going after his disinformation campaign. But he just is a president, and he wants to make sure he's not causing any panic. That's a reasoning behind his statements. But overall, Ukrainians are ready and they are prepared, and it feels that they understand what is going on. This is not about Ukraine. They keep asking me a number of times that do not please call this a Ukraine war. This is a Russia war. This is a war for democracy, war for stability in the region. They are just happen to be the forefront of that fight right now. It's going between Russia and the West.
Do you think Russia is intoxicated because they were able to support Assad regime in Syria, and the United States more or less backed down? Do you think they are thinking they could do things like that?
I would take you even before Russia, the Syria war. I was born in Azerbaijan in the Soviet Union, and Russia has been from time to time, going after post-Soviet countries because somehow Russia thinks that those are not the countries and they're not nations; they're just buffer zones. And from time to time, Putin, when he feels that he needs to boost his image at home, he's got to turn back to his people and tell them, hey, I got just a piece of Azerbaijan, piece of Georgia, piece of Ukraine, Moldova to you, and just step back and just be happy. So you're greatest nation in the world. That is a narrative behind that. But the problem is, I started this conversation with information and disinformation. It was before the internet world, and the world was different. You and I discussed 2 years ago how the Karabakh war, broke out. And, when we go back to like 30 years ago, we still had no idea, how Armenians and Azeris were, back then fired up against each other. Russia did the same thing in Georgia. Well, Georgia and breakaway territories, they were victims of Russian disinformation. And then afterwards, Russia started pushing, its hard way in. They did same thing in Transnistria, in Moldova. They did the same thing in Ukraine twice. So this is about Russia trying to basically, not even Russia, the man in the Kremlin at the age of 70, and trying to mark his history and mark his place in the history. And this is probably his last chance to save his face, and he's just bullying around. When it comes to Syria, I happened to talk to several Obama administration officials previously, and at some point they told me that the way Putin back then responded to Obama's request in terms of how to respond to Syria event, it was about having one strong man. That's how Russia envisions Muslim countries, having a strong man and planting them there and standing behind a strong man and making sure a strong man is succeeding, because that's how he sees the Muslim community overall. He did the same in Chechnya. That's the Chechnya model that he was imposing in Syria, and he was also lobbying for that model back in the Western capitals. And the Ukraine is a little bit different. Yes, in the end of the game for him is to try to install some pro-Russian, Ukrainian authoritarian leader in Ukraine, because that's the same thing they did in other parts of the region. But that will not. That's the signal that the Ukrainians have received, and that's why they are fighting back, and they're calling this a fight for democracy.
How imminent do you think the war is?
I do appreciate the fact that the Western leaders are consistent enough with their messaging in terms of the war is coming tomorrow, and next week, in the near future. And you also mentioned the President Obama, this morning at the White House, again, replicated same messaging. I see sometimes Russian media is mocking the U.S. Intelligence community in terms of putting the information out there about like this Wednesday and some other days. But I think they forget the fact that the goal here is to stop the war, not to prove the war is going to happen. So I think this is very helpful tactic. This is something the U.S. government and Western democracies refrained from using before during the Georgian war and Ukrainian war in 2014. But this is how you're going to challenge a bully. You're going to tell him what you know about him, about his actions, and that's why you're going to stop him from taking a step right now. I do feel that the fact that it did not happen yesterday is a victory for the Western community, for Ukraine so far. If we can hold on a few more weeks by chasing the bully, I'm not sure how long it's going to happen, but I hope this will be helpful long enough that Russians cannot move forward, because that part of the country, Ukraine, the eastern part of the country, there's some time sensitivity involved into this war campaign. They cannot move their tanks forward, in April. So there's a small window for them to get in and get out. I think that's their tactical strategy, and that's why they were trying to push all the other narratives to find some pretext to take the first step. I heard this morning that U.S. administration officials told us that there's a good chance that they're going to use the UN Security Council summit, this meeting this morning, as a pretext. Thankfully, we also heard that the White House sent Secretary of State there, and he made a very clear statement there, calling them to basically move the troops back and send the diplomats in the negotiation table, which is a very good. I think there's some consistency there. I hope this will work, but there's a sentiment back in the region that this war is going to happen. If this is just a bluff, this is going to be the most expensive bluff of the history, because there are millions and millions of amount of I think amount are involved, and there are more than 170,000, according to latest information, soldiers and equipments have been involved, and this is going to be very high price for Russia to pay, whether they get in or not get in. It is still going to be expensive. But Putin is at some point winning the other side of the story, which is gaining the attention. Putin doesn't want to be parked. He heard last year this time that this administration is going to focus on China and other parts of the world, and Russia was not their highest priority. And this is something that he felt that he needs to gain attention, and just take a look at the news channels last couple of days, and you will see Western leaders are lined up in front of Kremlin trying to meet with him. That is what he was looking for at this point. Does he need more? Well, Putin likes he likes symbolic days, as you know, that the end of this year will be 100th anniversary of Soviet Union's creation of the Soviet Union. Some analysts are focusing on that wider agenda that Putin has. But at the same time, there's the 20th of February, I see is being circulated on the media because that's the day when Russia is going to end its military action, its military what they call it campaign in Belarus, training in Belarus. At the same time, that's the day when Olympics is going to end in China, and there's an assumption that he's not going to hurt his Chinese, friends' feelings by just stepping, causing a war right now. So he can't wait and afford it for another week. That's the sentiment in the region. But I still hope that by chasing the bully again, by understanding his tactics, he's not doing anything new right now. Russia again has done this. It's just straight out of Putin's playbook that he played in Georgia, in the Caucasus, in Ukraine 10 years ago, 8 years ago, in Moldova and other parts of the region.
What do you think? Are Europeans united on this issue?
I have this feeling that European, overall union is suffering from leadership. Merkel left, and some European countries are, leaders are going through election process. I can name the name. Macron is going to run. That's why Germany has different agenda. It also has its own, concerns about, energy and other, they know that Ukraine is going to fight one hand behind. They don't have enough resources, and Europe understands that. Ukrainians won't need any permission, when it comes to humanitarian, factor of the story, any permission to go to Europe, because they do have actually right now visas to, they being a Ukrainian citizen, they have a permission, to enter European Union territory without asking for visa. So this is going to be massive, migration problem for them. There's a human rights issue involved because Russia, did conduct gross human rights, violations. You and I, Adam, go back to our amnesty years, something we have documented back then, what Russia did in Chechnya and did in Ukraine even 8 years ago. So that's why Europeans, they are, as we say back in the region, they're one shirt closer than the US to the story. And that's why I do understand that the European Union, particular countries, different countries have different agendas, have different expectations and concerns. But overall, Brussels, I was in Brussels a couple of weeks ago. I heard, that European, leaders are on the same page with the US. And again, the best outcome of this story, even by now, is that European Union and overall Western diplomats do have sense of how Putin is playing this game. So they understand him and they are chasing him with his own rules, with his own playbook, which is something, again, that we have not seen before.
Well, thank you so much. Alex RAUFOGLU just came back from Ukraine, is a journalist based in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for very tremendous work you have put together. I appreciate that.
Back to you, Hena.
Thank you so much, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our Facebook and YouTube. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.